welcome to our channel. My name is Dr. John Lucio, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Sue. It's your midweek check-in. We hope your week got off to a great start. Today we're going to be talking about melatonin. It's a really short, focused talk about melatonin and what other properties it has. Most of us just know that melatonin helps with sleep, but it has so many other good properties that help with a lot of other medical conditions. We're going to talk about this in today's video. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. We upload 2 videos a week all about integrative medicine approaches to treating any kind of medical problem. Always leave your comments down below. We're going to cover in the future PMS, brain fog, and a lot of other things that you want to hear. So make sure you put them in the comments below and we'll cover it. Well, melatonin, as you know, can be bought over the counter. This is not a prescription, and they come in lots of different doses. You know, you can get 0.3 milligrams all the way up to 20 milligrams, but you want to kind of know what you're treating and why and how melatonin works so that you use melatonin in the safest dose for the right reason. Now, melatonin is made in a gland called the pineal gland. It's made from tryptophan by the pathway of 5-HTP and serotonin. And it's inhibited in the daytime when we see a lot of those blue wavelength of light. Then it's disinhibited, which means it's allowed to be produced at night when we don't have the light. And it helps with inducing sleep, inducing dreaming. It helps us with antioxidant effects, anti-inflammatory effects, and it goes around and eats up and scavenges all those free radicals. So this is a really interesting hormone that we produce in our own bodies. Now, whenever we want to talk about melatonin, everybody knows somebody that's taken melatonin because you can't sleep. So we're going to cover sleep for the use of melatonin as well as 6 other conditions that it may help in, but we're going to throw in one of the 6 that it doesn't, and that way you use melatonin safely. So starting from the top, insomnia. Insomnia, we can use melatonin in small doses. Like your friends are probably on doses of 10, 20 milligrams. For sleep, you have to only do 0.3 to 0.5. So 0.3 to 0.5 milligrams every night to help with sleep. Now, if you are deficient though in melatonin, we want to use a higher doses because melatonin is an important hormone for a lot of our body systems. And we're going to get into the 5 other medical conditions, actually 4 other that help. There's one that doesn't help. But in order to measure melatonin, we use the saliva. So we use our spit, and you'll want to measure it if you're wanting to use higher doses. If you just want to go to the store and just get melatonin, only get 0.3 to 0.5 milligrams at night. And you can get them sustained release or immediate release, but we'll talk about that in the insomnia section as well. The reason that we have to measure melatonin levels if we're wanting to use treatment doses is that melatonin in patients that are not needing it, like their levels are fine, it can cause depression. And also, melatonin is very contraindicated in people with bipolar illness. In these patients, it can make the depression part of their bipolar illness more severe. But if you're going to measure melatonin, you want to measure it in the saliva, and your doctor will give you this kit, and you'll measure it 3 times. One at 8 a.m., one at 5 p.m., and then another one at 3 a.m. And when you do that 3 a.m. collection of saliva, make sure that kit's right by your bed because you want to keep the lights off. You don't want to like turn on the lights and then reach for your kit and then read it and then put it. You need to put it in the dark, put your saliva in the dark, because as you remember, the minute you turn on that light, your melatonin levels start to not be produced, so it won't be an accurate level. So if you're going to use it for insomnia, you want to do 0.3 to 0.5 milligrams at night. And depending on if you want an immediate result, like some people just wake up at 4 a.m. like they went to bed real easy and then they wake up suddenly at 4 a.m. and they like to get that little extra hour or 2 of sleep before they go to work, then you can just quickly take a immediate release 0.3 to 0.5 milligram dose. If you're someone that like takes it and then immediately you're up like 4 hours later, use a sustained release because the half dose of melatonin is 2 hours. So that means...
You mean half-life, right?
Half-life of melatonin is 2 hours, 1.5 to 2 hours. That means that it's out of your system in 1.5 and 2 hours, and you're going to be wide awake. So use a sustained release, because then you take it and it puts you to sleep, but keeps you asleep through the rest of the night. So you can kind of play with that and see which kind of preparation you want to use.
And can I add something?
Yeah.
In my practice, I actually recommend a little bit even higher dose than that. I go up to 1 milligram, and I typically tell the patients do at least 1 milligram of sustained release right off the bat, because of the half-life is so short. And that seems to be working for a lot of my pain patients. Sometimes I've given the immediate release dose, like if they get up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And what I've found is with some patients, even myself, if I take it at that hour, then I'm kind of groggy when I first wake up. It takes me a long time really just to be fully alert. And so anyways, so just kind of play around with it. But the experience I've had with some other individuals as well, they've told me they're taking up to 10 milligrams or even 20 milligrams at night. And if you're really not getting good sleep with that, we really shouldn't be doing it anymore. At this point, you really need to find out why you're not sleeping and actually pursue another medication or even another supplement.
I think it's really interesting because you're using melatonin, which has anti-inflammatory properties, and your pain patients have inflammation.
Right.
Interesting. So remember, melatonin, as we get into these next 4 things that it helps and one that doesn't help, remember that it has not just sleep-inducing and dream-inducing properties, it's anti-inflammatory, immune modulating, and it scavenges up all those free radicals. So the next medical problem that it helps is the brain. So it does help with patients with ADHD. So giving ADHD patients a dose of 1 milligram every night does help. The next is autism spectrum disorder. In autism spectrum disorder individuals, there are 50 to 80% of them with sleep disorders, so giving them melatonin really does help them to sleep. If they cannot swallow any pills, it comes in solutions, so those are little liquids that the child can swallow. It comes in 1 milligram per ml solution, so you can do 1 milligram up to 3 milligrams 1 to 2 hours before the intended bedtime.
Yeah. And if you're going to use it for your child, make sure you do it in conjunction with some of the conventional therapies as well.
Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. In these patients, they have low nighttime melatonin levels. And if you give a dose of 1 milligram, it helps their circadian rhythms, it helps their sleep, it improves their cognitive function, and decreases their agitation. Before we get into a really good subject of breast cancer, we're going to talk about the one disease that you shouldn't use melatonin in, and it's called inflammatory bowel disease. Those are things like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. In those cases, this makes those diseases worse, so don't use melatonin if you have those 2 conditions of your bowels. So the next subject that we're really excited about is breast cancer, because Mom was affected by breast cancer. There's a lot of you that know someone that does. So because it's immune modulating and free radical scavenging, melatonin is now studied in breast cancer patients in high doses of 20 milligrams. Now we're talking high doses of melatonin in breast cancer patients. Don't just go out and say, hey, I just heard them on YouTube. Let's go get a 20 milligram dose so we can get rid of our breast cancer. No, you have to really wait till your chemotherapy and radiotherapy are done. And he explains it really good, but we'll get into that just a little bit. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. Because in breast cancer patients, they have insomnia, so you can use doses of 12, 20 milligrams for insomnia, but again, you have to really be careful. See, melatonin is cytotoxic, it's immune modulating, it's antioxidant. So remember those things while he's talking, because you'll remember why you have to be really careful using it.
Right. So when patients are getting treated with cancer, they actually want these free radicals to address or to attack the cancer cells. And you do not want any kind of interference with that. So if you're trying to treat your cancer with something you read on the internet, for example, I'm going to try high-dose melatonin, make sure you contact your oncologist. By at this point, a lot of the oncologists have the most up-to-date information in even those botanicals and alternative medicines that do interact with some of the chemotherapeutic agents or radiation. So don't try to freelance, because that's basically what you're going to be doing, and it's not always for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it will interact and maybe cause your chemotherapy or your radiation to not work as well.
Right.
Because we need free radicals to fight the cancer. Because that's why we get really sick when we go through chemo and radiation, is that we're killing some of the good cells too. So that's why we want the tumor cells to be killed. And the last one is migraine headaches. Migraine headaches. There's plus and minus on whether this helps. There are studies that show if you take 10 milligrams a day for 4 weeks at night, it helps reduce the frequency of cluster headaches. In migraine patients, you might want to just do sleep maintenance. We're not talking about treating migraines with melatonin. We're talking about inducing sleep maintenance and then sleep health. So while they're doing all the other things for their migraines, you might want to help yourself with sleep maintenance. That means taking melatonin maybe for just 2 weeks to get your circadian rhythm back into cycle to help whatever migraine treatments you're using. There was a recent study though that shows that melatonin really didn't help migraines, but again, there are very few side effects. Like you said, you might feel drowsy after, a little nausea, but I mean, severe side effects are not with melatonin. So trying this to help your circadian rhythms while you're trying to get rid of these migraine headache frequencies is not a bad idea, even though recent studies show it might not help. You know, you might as well try, because the studies are mixed.
Yeah, and really the key thing though really is with migraines and is that you at least normalize the patient's sleep patterns. Mm-hmm. So that's what melatonin's for. And melatonin by itself, given to patients who do not have sleep abnormalities, are really not going to help their migraine frequency. So it really is in those patients that have difficulties with getting to sleep and maintaining a normal sleep pattern.
We keep talking about the circadian rhythm. What is it?
Natural internal sleep-wake cycle that determines how long we need to sleep and how long we have to be awake. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you got something out of it. This Sunday we're going to be talking about PMS. All right, see you next time. So long.